the recording here. And just
Mhm.
to right off the bat with what you mentioned is that Moira is not, like you said, just not a healer. And that's not what she should only be looking to do. In general, I'd probably say that Moira is looking to, and like in the amount of time that you're dedicating to each, she's gonna be more around like 50-50 split between damage and healing.
Mhm.
In the amount of time that you're dedicating to healing and damaging, and we'll get more into that once like I'm just gonna take a look at your gameplay. We'll like in a minute or so we'll start talking about the things once I start noticing something. So we'll just go ahead and start here.
Yeah, I kind of. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, when it comes to knowing when to damage versus heal, it comes down to a simple rule of whether it comes to, in three different categories with your just regular left click and right click, with your orbs, and with your ultimate. If healing is not necessary, you default to damage. Damage just happens anytime healing is not a necessity or healing isn't needed. And then if healing is needed, which is going to happen pretty frequently because, of course, people need healing, and that's what your
Mhm.
role is, when people do need healing, then we look for healing. So specifically, that means that in the situation with our orb, what we can be doing is right after we come out of spawn, we can make the assumption that we're not going to need healing orb right away and just toss in a damage orb, right into their team.
Right.
This gets us roughly like 10 ult charge or 9 ult charge, and if you're doing that consistently, that's going to up the amount of ults that you're getting and get in some extra damage. When you really don't, you haven't even used the healing, the orb for healing yet, so it's just that's what you're going to need it for, right?
Mhm.
This is my will. Allow me.
Yep. Good orbs.
I don't know. Follow that.
Right. Here, there's just a whole lot of downtime where we're just kind of sitting, staring at the fight, or where we could probably be doing something and participating a little bit had we just pushed forward a little bit. So you can kind of see like how long we just spend not really doing anything. So we can kind of count this out. We go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, well now we start shooting at something. 7, 8, 9. Okay, and then we throw something right. So we just spent roughly 9 whole seconds where we just kind of didn't do anything, and that's called actions per minute. How much are we doing? Like in utilizing our time, right? If you compare a
Mhm.
bronze player to a like grandmaster player, a grandmaster player is efficient with everything that they do, and every single second of the game they're doing something and using that time wisely. When we're sitting around and not doing anything for a large amount of time, that means that we're just not accomplishing anything. We're not doing anything, and we want to be productive and go and do things. So here we just want to be looking for damage and healing, not just kind of sitting around. We want to make sure that we're actively doing things, right, and not just sitting around. And that's just going to up your production level and mean that you're doing more things and winning more games as a result.
Right. So then, when I was doing nothing, pushing forward and doing damage was
Yep.
probably the play.
Yep, exactly. Because in this situation, it's not
And
very. We're not very not at risk a lot because we have we can use cover such as cart, which we can talk over at some point if we need to. Going over cover, which I'd imagine will come up at some point. We have our fade to get away. We have self healing if we throw a heal orb, and we currently don't have anybody looking at us, so we can get in range and start doing things pretty easily here. Go ahead. I think you're going to say something.
no, no, no. I meant like well, because I see the whole team. Well, I know I see 3 people there, and I know like the bastion is close enough, so I'm pretty scared.
Yep. Which, as long as you're keeping safe, that means that you don't have to be scared. So basically, you want it's a very fine line between productivity and survivability. if you're focusing too much on survivability, and we could be the most survivable player in the game and sit over here and spawn and not have any impact and do nothing, and therefore we lose because we did not participate. So that's kind of that it's an extreme example of what we're doing here. Is we're focusing too much on survivability, and therefore our productivity levels go down. And if we focus too much on productivity and we don't think about survivability at all, then that means that we just end up dying, which again means that we're not doing anything. So what we want to do is try to find a kind of the fine line where we're doing things, but then also staying alive, which means that you utilize a lot of different techniques, such as using cover and having good positioning, as using your abilities well, which we can talk about at some point. Here we just want to make sure that we're actively trying to do something. We're not just sitting around.
Right.
Okay. Well,
A touch from afar. Your body decays. The power of destruction.
nice healing.
Point of the ledge.
Special delivery on the way.
Get into position.
All right, just a real quick one. This one's not going to be too super insanely important, but you never need more than one person on card at a time. Usually, on any payload map, you have two fights roughly. You have the first fight that happens around here, the second fight that happens at the end, right? And that is not going to change on the whether or not we have one person or three people on. It'll change if anybody staggers, or if something happens, or if we lose fights, but it's not going to change by having more people on card. So basically here we just want to make sure we're up with our Sigma if he's pushing forwards. That way we can heal him faster and be with him to help keep him alive, rather than sitting on cart here. Also, if you see that he's in danger, don't be afraid to use your fade to get to him faster, or you can use it for mobility
Get into
purposes.
position.
Alright, 223. We're just going to go over some kind of more positioning and at the ranges of which you want to be standing from with your team and the enemy team. Oftentimes we're a little too far away from our team, and we're a little bit too far away from the enemy team. On Moira, how we work is damaging enemies. You have a 20-meter range, so that's from here to there. 20 meters, if we step outside of this, we can no longer damage them because they're too far away, right, outside of our reach. Now they are in our reach, right? With our healing, it is a 15-meter range, so that's going to be right up here. On these guys, we can heal them, but if I step back past this, I can no longer heal them, right? We're not doing any healing there. If you look at his health bar. Now, that means that you want to look to stick within those ranges almost at all times. It's not always going to be an option, but you're going to try to do your best to try to stick within those ranges whenever it's an option, so you can be doing damage at a moment's notice and doing healing at a moment's notice, as a lot of times we seem to be a little bit far away from our team and not really next to them. The other thing is you just want to make sure that, especially with your team, you're not always going to want to be at max distance, because this is going to make it a little bit more inaccurate. It's also going to mean that you aren't able to group heal. When you're standing really far away from your team, you have to do this, and to heal either of them, you have to go back and forth, back and forth. But if you stand next to them, you can actually heal both of them at the same time by catching them both in the beam, right? So when it comes to teammates, you're probably going to want to stand a little bit closer than standing really, really far away, so you can end up healing everyone pretty easily. So stick with your team. Don't stray too far away from them, and with enemies, make sure you're sticking within your right-click range, right? You're not standing too far away from them, so you can constantly get damage off when it's needed.
That makes sense.
Arriving at watch point, ready for battle.
So we're like 2 something here, and right around here. Okay, so when it comes to us looking to damage, which we've talked about how damage is something that we want to look to be doing pretty frequently, it's going to be happening like half the time for us, since healing is not going to be needed every single second of the game. So what that means is we want to also take a look at our target priority. So target priority being, what do we want to be shooting at, right? Now, in general, no matter what character you're on, you want to be looking to focus anything that's not a tank. tanks are not where we want to focus because tanks have 2 to 3 times the health of other characters. They have shields, Diva has eat, you have a bunch of other defensive abilities, they have mobility, and on top of that, DPS and supports just have higher statistical output value. So tanks, they're a very important role, but their job is to create space for the other roles, whereas DPS do the damage, supports do the healing. So they're who we want to be focusing, and a large portion of our damage has just been on these two guys right here, the two tanks, which isn't who we want to be looking at damage. On top of that, I'd probably say on Moira, it's even less so that you want to be focusing tanks because you have very low damage output, and therefore you want to be going, but it's also in comparison to other characters, it's easy damage to get out, right? You have low output, but it's easy damage, and therefore you want to look to go for the characters that are going to be killed faster and easier, right? Which is going to be the supports, which is going to be the DPS, not the tank, just staring at the tanks. Right. In general, look to use your Fade a bit more. I don't think I've seen us. Maybe we've used it once so far, but besides that, we haven't really used it too much. Fade usage, basically what you want to use it for is either one of two things. You either want to use it for mobility, anytime you're trying to get somewhere fast, or you use it for survivability, anytime you're trying to save yourself from getting shot at, from getting damaged, from anything, you're fading away. Here, if you see that a Bastion turns the corner, just make sure that we're running away and getting behind cover. Here, Bastion ults, right? And we just kind of stand out in the open, and that gets us killed, right, by the Bastion, or the Sigma kills us right afterwards. So you just want to watch out for that and look to back up when the Bastion is shooting at us, right? And just use our Fade, you do something. Just don't stand there. Right.
This is gonna make you feel better.
Repairing the damage.
Enemies in our orbit.
This is my will.
About to break.
I'm restoring you. This will restore you.
Alright. When it comes to ultimate usage, you want to look to use your ultimate first in fights. Why that is, and it's a very kind of simple illustration we can use is, let's say the enemy team has a Moira as well, and they have Coalescence. If their Moira uses Coal before you use your Coal, that Moira gets healing out, they get damage out, they get kills, and therefore they have an advantage in the fight and they're winning. Now, if we use our Coalescence after that point, it's going to get inherently less value because now we're down people, we have a disadvantage in the fight, and therefore, even if we get picks with it, it's less valuable than if we were using it first, right? So we just, in general, want to be looking to use our ultimate at the beginning of fights, not in the mid-fight or at the end of the fights. And then the other thing that does for us is it means that we don't end up holding on to it, because if we use it mid-fight, then at that point we might have already lost the fight, and we don't want to use ults in fights that we've already lost, because that's not going to make a difference. And that might just force us to hold on to it for longer, which means we never get our ult out. And in general, you just want to look to not hold on to your ultimates. You want to use them frequently, because the more ults we get out, the more value we're going to be getting, right? Abilities and ults not used don't get value. So we just want to be looking to use Coalescence at some point here. Again, you can notice the difference in the fact that our team is pushing forwards, and we're putting ourselves very, very far outside of range of everybody, right? We're not near most of our team when they're getting aggressive, and we're also not in range to be damaging anything or doing anything. So I'd probably say proactivity and damage actions per minute is definitely a big one I'm noticing so far. It's just we want to make sure we're doing things. There's a lot of downtime where we're not doing things. So look to constantly, you should be always doing one, basically always damaging or always healing. One or the other should be coming out almost at all times. Now you're not always gonna be in range of somebody, and you're not always gonna need healing, but that's pretty much what it should look like. Is anytime healing's not needed, we're damaging, and anytime healing's needed, we're healing. Here we should definitely be with our team. Okay, Coalescence comes out. That's pretty decent timing with it. Okay, rather than. So here, 326, when we're using Coalescence, kind of the exact same thing that we were talking about with our regular healing. is if we want to just alter our positioning a little bit. Actually, I have to get Coalescence up real quick, but you can see real quick as well, if you throw in a damage orb, you're actually going to be getting a decent amount of ult charge off of that, but we'll just get our ult charge up here. Basically, you can tell from the fact that, or like what we were talking about before, right, with your positioning and how when you're right next to these guys, you can line up both of them and heal both of them. In the same way, if you're trying to get as many people as possible in your Coalescence, right? You're trying to hit as many as possible, get like 3, 4, 5 people, and that's how you're getting your max value out of your Coalescence. So what we want to be doing is pivoting ourselves around our teammates. So if we're just looking at one person, we're only coalescing one person, right? But if we stand, for example, inside of our teammate here and we move around them, we could be healing them while also damaging enemies, right? Or we could do that with multiple teammates, right? We just want to make sure that we're looking to line people up and not just hit one person individually. So a good way to do this is to, like I said, just put yourself right next to your teammates rather than sitting really, really far back here, because that makes it a lot harder. And instead of just healing our team, right, instead of doing this, we want to be doing this where we can damage and heal at the same time, right? So that we can get value out of hitting everybody, right? Not just one person or 2 people. Right? We're trying to get as many people as possible, so we position ourselves where we can hit as many people as possible. Okay, I like the tech though that you use your orb right before you Coalescence. That was really nice. So I like, we're about to throw an orb. Actually, this in a minute here. Yeah, we throw an orb here to say to burst heal Reinhardt, so that's really good. That's a good orb and good Coalescence combo, and I think the timing here is pretty decent, even though I probably would say earlier would be better. But we also just end up instead of what we could be doing is pivoting ourselves here so that we can damage or heal and damage D.Va, or heal and damage someone around the corner there. We end up just we standing to his left and we just heal Reinhardt, right? We trying to hit as many things as possible. Also look to watch for the Sigma Flux and look to walk outside of it. Watch for health bars of your teammates. This has been something that I've noticed a tiny little bit, but just make sure you're paying attention to your environment. This is called awareness, of being aware of what's happening around you. If we've talked about how damage is happening and less healing is needed. Here, now healing is needed because you have a Reinhardt who's critical, you're low, you have Sigma who's half, right? So healing is definitely needed in the scenario, yet we're damaging. So again, this is just where we're damaging in the wrong situation, and we want to be looking to heal, and that's a situation where we probably should be throwing a heal orb, right? Because again, we need healing, our Reinhardt needs healing. So we want to pay attention to our environment. That there's a ton of different things that go into awareness, but that's a big one, is just making sure we're looking around us, right? Where's our team? Where's the enemy team? What are their health bars looking like, right? Like, we want to pay attention to those things, and that'll allow us to make better decisions. When we have high awareness, we can make good decisions. When we don't know what's happening around us, we can't inherently make good decisions. Alright, now the Sigma's full. Now we're looking to damage. Backing up a little far here. Nice self-heals. Okay, look to use Fade. We haven't very rarely used Fade. Look, like if you see Sigma's charging up a rock on you, you can Fade to get out of that, right, and dodge it. Okay, again, you can see we're kind of like out of range of, in this situation, we're kind of out of range of the things we're trying to shoot at. So just a lot more tank shooting when it comes to our right click, which means we're not getting as much value as if we were shooting at the supports or the DPS. On top of that, we're positioning ourselves to where we're a little bit far away from the tanks, and we just spend some time not really doing much here. Right, nobody needs healing at the moment. If you look top right, every single person on our team is full HP, so we should be looking for damage here. Yeah, we just kind of like are sitting around, not in range of the enemy team, so we want to just be a little bit closer there, a little bit further forwards. We kind of have a very passive playstyle, I'd probably say, is kind of what it looks like right now, and we want to, and definitely when it comes to the kind of chart, right, of passive versus aggressive, passive being 0, aggressive being 100, you're sitting more along the lines of like 30 or something like that, right? Little too passive. And I'm not telling you to go to 100, because that would probably be a very bad mistake and not very good, but I'm trying to get you to go up to like 50, right? Just get a little bit more aggressive, because we're just sitting around a lot of the time, not in the best positioning. We want to be positioning next trying to be around as many teammates as we can be around, right? And around as many enemies as we can be around so we can damage them. But we're not really in that range a lot of the time.
I'm restoring you.
Okay.
Allow me to
When
repair the
you
damage.
fade, so 423, when you fade away from something, keep in mind that you do not always need to go in a direction. You can just stand still, or you can go forwards there. So we'll just go over some fade stuff here. So how you can look to control fade a little better. First off, just a basic fade would be going from 0 meters to here, right, 15 meters roughly. To go a little bit further, you can add in a jump at the very end, and this can allow you to go up to somewhere like this and just get you some extra range with it and make you go faster. Keep in mind that when we're running away from something, we don't always want to go our max distance. So if a bomb happens, right, and a bomb's right there, and our entire team's right here, and we go all the way back and add in a jump, now look how the bomb has happened, but look how far away we are from our team. We can't heal. We're outside of the fight, right? So instead, what we do is we can just fade. Instead of fading away, we can fade to dodge the bomb. So as soon as it's about to explode, we fade, and then that dodges the bomb out, but we're still in place and we can still heal our team. Or we can even fade and go forwards, which is also an option. Right? Another thing to keep in mind with our fade is a lot of times we're going to want to fade around corners, right? We can control our movement and go in certain directions, so we can go forward and to the left, right? So like here we can go around either by looking or just using our arrow keys, right? And then that way we can get around corners, and that can confuse people as to where you are, as well as just put you on a corner where they can't actually shoot at you and see you, right?
It's a lot of things.
Yep, there's gonna be a lot of things.
Arriving at watch point, ready for battle.
Get into position.
Alright, so it was like around here is like 3 something.
Before, yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, I think we were like right there. And Sigma uses
This will heal you. Will made real.
Where was it? Oh, okay, I guess I'm way past
yeah,
it.
we're like, no, we're right. We're right.
We're ahead of
there.
that?
Yeah, because I was healing.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Alright, so here just see how far away we are from our team now.
Allow me
Right.
to repair the damage.
Throwing orb, look at players' health bars, right? Orb is needed when we're outside of range of healing, or when we don't have any resource left, which is fine. I think here would be fine if we're throwing in a Sigma, but we also just don't really have the right geometry with our orb. Make sure that when we're throwing our orb that we're throwing it where it's not going to bounce off of stuff randomly. So here when we throw it, look at where our crosser's at, right?
Allow me to repair
Therefore,
the
it
damage.
hits the ground, goes up in the air, and goes off in the Narnia. So just look to place your orbs well and make sure they're going in the right direction so that we can actually get good healing off.
I'm under attack.
Right. Good damage. Right.
Nothing's gonna stop.
The payload has reached the checkpoint.
We must ensure the payload's progress. Surrender to my will.
Enemies in our orbit.
Okay. In this situation, looked again when it comes to priorities. We're going for the Mercy over the Diva, as well as the fact that if once Sigma's not critical anymore, we should be looking for primarily damage, as we talked about. Same thing. When healing is not necessary, we go to damage because damage is our default. So here we should probably be going back to the Mercy when Sigma doesn't need it. Keep in mind your Coalescence does have a range to it, so you're not going to be able to heal infinitely far. So here, when we're trying to heal the Reinhardt at the very end there, why did it disappear?
Oh,
What the heck? Yeah, what the heck?
I think the range
Right,
is
here it goes.
like, isn't it like 30 meters?
I'm actually not aware, but you can see it here. Yeah, I would say it's maybe like 30 meters, right? So you can see it doesn't reach all the way to Reinhardt. So I'd probably say that maybe that's more like 30 or 40. Probably more like 40. So it's pretty far, but it doesn't go all the way to Reinhardt. Right, so you just got to keep the range in mind. We can tell whether or not it's doing anything based off the fact of you'll get markers on your hit markers and stuff like that on your right next to your crosshair. So you notice when you're damaging, you'll see damage. You'll see the white little icon. It's a little bit too bright there. but you can see there's like white marks right next to your crosshair if you're looking. Then that'll show you when you're damaging people. And then healing, you'll see their health bar go up, right? So that's how you know whether or not you're doing something with it. Other than that, good job not holding on to it. And I think that was a pretty decent time to be using it. Good usage of Fade. And again, look to throw your orbs a little bit more targeted. Unfortunate with the nade there. Again, look to prioritize healing when people need healing. Yeah, pay attention to his health bar. Really good, it's just a little bit delayed. Again, Genji's dashing around you and he's low, so this is again feeding into awareness. Right now we have 1, 2, 3 people who are super low and we're very delayed with our healing. We're not really noticing that they need healing, so pay attention to what's happening around you so we can heal a little bit better and more efficiently. Alright. And now we're healing when it's like not really necessary, and we're throwing an orb when it's not necessary, right? So you just pay attention to when is healing needed, when is it not needed. Is that seems to be a big thing happening so far, as well as awareness of paying attention to what's happening around us.
Yeah, everything is so chaotic in this game. It's really hard to give.
All right, so
keep track of everything.
Yeah, sorry, I'm this is just going on to strengths and weaknesses. So far, looking kind of what we're looking at with strengths and weaknesses and kind of what needs to be worked on is, no offense meant, but bronze is, the lowest rank that we're working with. So you're gonna have pretty much everything's a weakness, right? At the moment.
Yeah.
So so I'm gonna go more off of like kind of what is more important to work on than others, but ability usage, I probably would say is okay. It needs a lot of work though with when we're using Fade very infrequently. And our healing, the orb, we just want to make sure we're placing a little bit better. And then on top of that, we the big thing is that we want to look to get to know when we're supposed to be healing and when we should be throwing healing orbs and when we should be throwing damage orbs, right? Just you should be spamming damage orbs anytime somebody's not low, anytime you have resource, anytime you don't have your ultimate, and anytime that you're out of range of healing. That's when you throw healing orbs, but if none of those are checked off, you're tossing damage orbs. Ultimate usage, just look to use it early in fights. Other than that, I like that we're not holding on to it. That's good. I'll have sometimes people hold on to it for like 4 or 5 fights in a row, and I'm like, okay, you got to use it because otherwise you don't get value out of it. So really good on that end. Other than that, make sure you're lining people up so you can hit more people. Now I think where we get a little bit more into problems is where we step into some of the other categories here. Mechanics, not really too much of a problem, just like shooting at people, right? We don't have trouble like shooting at people or healing people. That's not really an issue, but we're kind of in that category would be target priorities and making sure that we're shooting at the right people and not just spamming tanks the entire time, but we're shooting at the supports and DPS so we can do a lot more to kill and a lot easier. On top of that, whenever you're looking to 541, okay, whenever we're looking to damage somebody, look to toss in a damage orb as well, because that can burst damage them. So it's kind of like you're damaging them from 2 different damage sources, which kills them a lot faster. And whenever you kill something faster, it's going to be better for you because they die faster, they can't get healed, they can't get away. So if we, for example, are trying to kill the Ashe on the left here, we would, or let's say she was full HP, right? Here it wouldn't be necessary, but if she's full HP, we can look to right click her, but then also throw a damage orb at her at the same time, and that would be killing her twice as fast as if we were just right clicking her, right? Same thing with the healing orb is we whenever we need someone who's like in danger or who's really low, we throw the healing orb so we can burst heal them up, right? It's 2 different sources of healing, so it's healing them extra fast. Besides that, mechanics, not really too much. Positioning and awareness, I think, are big ones, as well as maybe getting into a little bit of kind of play style things. So positioning, make sure you're sticking with your team and you're sticking with it like super close to your team, and as you want to be next to as many teammates as you can be, right, within in range of as many teammates as you can be. You also want to make sure you're within range of enemies, so you can look to be damaging them whenever healing's unnecessary. And then on top of that, just want to be actually doing things and being proactive. Now, onto awareness. Awareness, there's a ton of different stuff. You have HUD awareness, so that would be paying attention to your ability, your health, your ability usage, right? But then so far, I don't think that we have too much of an issue with that. But you also have like kill feed awareness. So far, I haven't seen too much of an issue with that. Though where I think that you are struggling a little bit with awareness is knowing what's happening around you, right? In game awareness as well as kill feed or health bar watching, right? And making sure we're paying attention to health bars because that's going to dictate whether or not we're healing or damaging, right? So that is a big thing to work on. And when it comes to awareness is always a good segue into this because awareness might seem like a pretty weird thing to try to work on and pretty like hard to understand of like how does one get better at awareness, right?
Mhm.
Well, it's the same way that you're going to get better with anything that you're looking to work on here, right? And that is focus on the thing that you're trying to improve on, not autopiloting while you're playing, right? Um, so while you're playing the game, your brain should look something like this, where you're focusing in one particular area and going awareness, 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 right?
Mhm.
What this does is it gives you a constant reminder, and you're putting a lot of brain power, effort, and focus into it, and therefore, you'll notice that when you remind yourself, you'll be looking around a bit more, and therefore your awareness will be a bit higher than usual. And when you do that for a long enough period of time, it develops as a habit, and you no
Mhm.
longer have to constantly remind yourself and dedicate the same brain power to it, because now it comes naturally to you, and you can now dedicate that same brain power to a different thing. So look to focus one thing at a time. Don't try to do, because we talked about like 30 different things here. Don't try
Right.
to focus on every single thing at once because that's going to get overwhelming, but try to focus in on one category of things or kind of one subcategory of thing or a couple of like kind of tinier things, right? But don't do everything all at the same time,
For
right?
the moment, you will say awareness is important prime thing to focus on at this point.
Yeah, I'd probably say awareness is a pretty big thing because probably say at the moment a lot of the problems we're running into stem from awareness, because awareness, like we were talking about before, inherently leads to bad decision making.
Mhm.
You can't decide to heal, for example, you can't decide to heal Sigma when he's 1 HP if you don't see that he's 1 HP, and therefore it is a bad decision not to heal him if we don't see this, right? So we have to be able to see somebody who's low to make the decision to heal them, and that applies to any decision we ever make in the game. We can't make a good decision if we do not have information or we don't know what's happening. Therefore, if we're making bad decisions, a lot of that's going to stem from not being aware of our environments, right?
Right.
Unless you saw Sigma who's low and then and then actively thought I should be damaging right now. If you saw Sigma who's now in this situation he's fine, but like let's say Sigma was like 1 HP and you were like, I see he's 1 HP, but I'm gonna damage anyways, right? That would be a problem. That wouldn't be awareness. That would just be us making a bad decision. In that case, you just need to make sure that you're just healing when healing's necessary.
I'm
Right.
restoring.
And then the final thing would just be play style, being knowing when to heal, knowing when to damage, and then on top of that, just making sure we're doing things. Actually, that kind of feeds into like the mechanics end of just making sure that we're upping our actions per minute and being a little bit more aggressive and actually trying to do more all the time, not
Allow
playing
me to
passive.
repair the damage.
Situation where probably heal orb isn't necessary, so another wasted orb, right? So we can look at when we throw it. Yeah, so I think we see some critical HP people, but right now Lucio died. We have Genji who's full, Sigma who's down like 100 HP, right? So no one's in danger, no one's low.
I'm
Therefore, this
restoring you.
heal orb gets wasted, and we probably should have just thrown a damage orb instead. Right? We were also very, very capable of just throwing a regular or like healing them regularly, right?
Right.
What is that melody?
I cast this forth.
Again, focus on the placement of the orbs. Throw it in the direction that they're walking, because if you don't, then it's not going to go with them. So here, when we throw it at the brig,
Melody.
right? What direction is the brig walking in?
It's work. She's walking to the right.
Yep, so he's
Oh.
walking to the right. So therefore, we should probably throw the orb to her right. That way, she walks into the orb and the orb stays with her longer. If we throw it on her left and she walks to the right, then the orb's leaving her a lot faster, right? Because here it taps it for 1 second and then does nothing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So throw it in her direction. And now it comes back and does damage there, so that's good. Right, so make sure that we are paying attention to kill feed. So now we get into kill feed awareness, right? In this situation, this is a lost fight for the fact that a few different facts, right? So basically, what we want to pay attention to, or at least this is looking very, looking like we're at a big disadvantage here. Basically, make sure you're paying attention to kill feed. Kill feed will give you a very, very good indication of whether or not you're winning or losing fights. When you're up 1 to 2 people, that means that you have an advantage, and therefore you can play more aggressive because they have less people to shoot at you, less people to, on their team, so you can get away with a lot more. When they are down, or sorry, when you are up 2 to 3 people, that is where you've pretty much won the fight. In a one fight, you don't want to use ults because that would just be overkill and it'd be wasting the ultimate. And then on top of that, you want to look to go super aggressive and kill the people because, again, you're not going to get punished for it. And it also means that you end up staggering them. Now, this also goes the exact opposite way. When you are down 1 to 2 people, that is a disadvantage. When you're down 2 to 3 people, that is pretty much a lost fight. And when you've lost the fight, that means that you don't want to ult because that ult just isn't going to change anything. And then on top of that, you want to look to get out if possible. And if you can't get out, you want to look to die so that you don't end up staggering yourself. Are you familiar with the term staggering?
No, not really.
No? Alright, so staggering is basically just, there's an annoying sound, I'm going to press play and pause. Basically, staggering is any time that you are dying late. When you die late, right, so let's say our whole team respawns and we die late, now that means that we go all the way back to spawn and we're waiting 10 seconds, and meanwhile, these guys have been walking around for a long time. So they have a decision. Do we wait for Moira? And if they do wait for us, then we've just wasted a ton of time off the time bank. Or they could also make the even worse decision and just go, or if they're not paying attention, they could push in without you. And then now, like we just discussed, then they'd be going into a fight where they already have a disadvantage, or even sometimes they're going into a fight where they've already lost the fight. Sometimes, like, somebody will walk in when it's a 1v6, right? Because they're not paying attention to their team. So in this situation, right, if we stagger ourselves, we either waste time or start a stagger train, because then McCree's going to walk in without us, and then McCree dies, and then Lucio's going to walk in without us, and then Lucio dies, and then so on, right? It's just going to keep going over and over and over again. So we want to make sure that we're dying and dying here, or getting out if we can, and then dying if we can't. And then ulting, let's see how it goes, but the other thing that I'm paying attention to is the fact that they have close spawns, right? They have spawns that are much, much closer than our spawns are. So that means that they're going to be getting their backup players a lot faster, right? So it's a 3v1, 2, 3, 4, and then they're about to have 5, right? So they're up 2. They also have close spawns, right? So that's a situation where this is, look, if it's not a lost fight, it's very, very close to being a lost fight. Again, when Reinhardt and Sigma don't need healing, look to prioritize the damage, so focus on, like, the Mercy, rather than, because you can see here how we kind of, like, we go to the Sigma first, right, when we see the Sigma's full HP, right, Sigma's down. This is not a situation where healing is really needed that much, right, where we could instead be focusing, like, on the enemy Sigma, who's 1 HP, right, and kill him. So look for the focus of damage, and we swap to Reinhardt, who's, again, pretty full HP, and then we swap to Mercy. So just make sure we're trying to stick with the characters we should be on. Keep in mind as well that you can't go through solid objects, right? You can't shoot through solid objects, so don't look to shoot at the cart.
Yeah.
Injured again. My will made real.
Right. So we lost the fight anyways, right? Because we were coming in at a big, big disadvantage, right? So therefore, we didn't really do anything but waste a lot of time when we could be coming in as a full team and using ultimate then, rather than using it when we're at a big disadvantage, right? So pay attention to kill feed. That's another big awareness thing. Want to make sure you're not walking in without your team. Okay, I guess we're just trying to save the Genji here. Nice throwing an orb, but the thing is it's going to bounce in the cart, so again, pay attention to what it's hitting, because it's bouncing in the cart and then going away again. So just pay attention to kind of the track. Instead, we just throw it here where there's nothing and it just goes straight through them. You're basically just trying to throw it straight at the enemies and make sure it's not bouncing off of different walls and stuff like that.
Right.
Okay, good job waiting for your team. It would have been a bad decision to walk out without them.
We must increase our efforts.
Wait.
What do you say?
No, sorry.
You're good?
Yeah, I'm good. Sorry.
All right.
Activating the barrier.
I am under attack.
Okay. Try to stay in range of your team. Like if you see that these guys are up there, we want to look to be up there with them. We can fade in aggressively with them if we wanted here. Like we could fade over here to heal the Genji. We could be, let's see, where we at? Do we have orb? No, we don't have orb. Or we could be just moving forwards here to be with them. All right, so we actually do that. Just make sure that we're looking to heal them a little bit faster there.
Bearing the damage.
That's a situation where healer probably would be necessary just to heal the Genji up, since he was low. But no, probably not too bad to throw the damage orb there.
Time we had is fading. My will
And another orb that
will
just
be
goes, gets wasted because we toss it there and then it goes bounce, bounce, bounce into nothingness, right? Just really, really pay attention to your orbs and make sure that they're getting value because a lot of times you toss them and they're not really doing much, right? So a lot of just getting better at the game is getting consistent and getting efficient. And there's a lot of areas where we're inefficient at and inconsistent at, right? Where sometimes our orbs are all right, sometimes, most of the time, our orbs aren't doing great. So look to when you're struggling with every single area. I'm going to try to give you the areas that like you're struggling the most with because those will probably be the get you improvement the fastest, as well as allow you to focus on one particular thing. But when you're struggling with everything, look to, instead of just trying to get better in general, look to really focus in on one particular area and improve from there, right?
Tell me how this feels.
The damage.
I don't know what. I don't know.
No problem with that. Alright, so we have another ult.
Activating the barrier.
Make sure we're not overhealing there. You can see there's kind of a lot more time here where we're just kind of sitting around, not really doing much. A lot more passive play where we're not participating. This is kind of where you get into actions per minute. So pay attention to the fact that a lot of the times here, people aren't really needing healing. And on top of that, you also have a heal over time effect on Moira. So when you heal somebody, it heals them over time for an additional 2 seconds. So when Sigma's down 50 HP here, we can tap him and just look away. Because we don't need to heal him anymore, because he's just going to heal that up over time. We don't really need to look at him too much here. He's not in danger, he's not low, so we should be using this time to damage. We throw in an orb, but then here Genji needs healing, we heal him up, but then now they're fine, right? Now they're back to full, right? They're all pretty high on HP, but we just keep healing, and we keep healing, and we're not damaging, and we keep healing. We're just kind of looking around, right? It's just a lot of passive time where we're not really doing much actions per minute. Just we want to be, as soon as we see those guys don't need healing, we want to be swapping over to damaging something. Okay, good fade. But again, make sure you're not fading like super, super far away, because like look how far away we are from our team. Look how far away we are from the fight when the fight's just starting. Preferably here, we should be looking to like fade and like get aggressive with it, because we could like be using Coalescence to combo with our Sigma here. We could kill the Diva and the Soldier pretty easily, right? But we end up being super, super far away from the fight, which means we can't really participate very much. Okay. Decent timing with the Coalescence. I like it. Honestly, Coalescence has looked like the thing that needs like the least amount of work out of everything that you're working with. It looks actually pretty decent most of the time. I like the timing. So far the usage has been like all right, but still needs to get a little bit consistent. But so far it's looking a lot better than some of the other areas. Okay. Actually, I must have completely missed something here. They actually don't have their whole team. So in this situation, actually, we might not have needed Coalescence, because I was not paying attention, but if we're paying attention in this game, they don't actually have half of their team, right? In this situation, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus a 1, 2, and I count Baby Diva as a half. That's just an easy way to count a Baby Diva as just 2.5. So in this situation, we're pretty much winning, and Coalescence might not really even be needed here, which you can see from the fact that we Coal, and then you'll see for the last like half of it, we're just like, what do I do with this? Right, we kill a Sigma, and then we're just like, Okay, nothing else to shoot at. Nothing else to shoot at. Right, okay, and then we just wasted like the rest of the most of it. So there, just make sure we're paying attention to, you know, who's alive in the fight. Pay attention not just to your team, but also to the enemy team. Watch kill feed, because that could also give you some indication as well, right? That's just an awareness thing,
This will restore
which I even wasn't aware of at like when I was first watching it through.
not ready.
A good healing orb. Make damage your #1 priority when we don't have any resource left. Here we just kind of, again, you see a little pause, like where we just don't do anything for a second after we're done healing. So we heal, we heal, we heal, we heal, we heal, and then we don't have any healing. We throw a healing orb, and then from here on out, we're gonna see a pause where we don't really do anything for a couple seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so again, we're just another big gap where it's actions per minute. Make sure we're doing something, right? So when we don't have any resource, we can't heal. So our focus should now be on damage, because we get a resource back by damaging. Therefore, we need to damage, right? We don't even have the option to heal anymore. So here, there's not a whole lot of damaging coming out when there's a lot of people like within damage range, right? We have Monkey who is dancing around us. D.Va, we could have looked over at these guys over here, but we're just kind of running around right now, not doing much, and then that means that we don't ever get healing here. Alright, and now we're finally starting to look for the damage, so that's good. It's just really delayed. Right.
Decision.
Yep.
This will restore you.
10 seconds remaining.
Hold your luggage. My condition
Alright.
is improved.
2, 1.
Okay, good damage over right off to start here. You just want to... I like that. We're getting off some early ult charge. That's just what we want to do consistently, because you can see here, like, we're just going to... Oh, actually, snap it. Didn't get anything. And people must have eaten it.
Yeah.
But still, I like the idea behind it. They're not always going to have a D.Va, right?
Pass this forth.
Yeah, when you're trying to, when they do have a D.Va, just try to get it around her if you can. So instead of just tossing it straight at her, which makes it super easy, we can wait until she's out of range, till she's dead, out of mech. We can look to throw damage orbs slightly less often. I'm not saying you never throw them, but you can look to throw them slightly less often and throw a little bit more healing orbs, because when you're throwing a healing orb, it's like kind of more on top of your team. When you're throwing a damage orb, it's on top of them. It makes it super easy for the D.Va to eat it, right? So just change up whenever you're up against different compositions, you're changing up your play style very slightly. So here we just want to maybe be paying attention to D.Va a little bit.
I'm under attack.
Okay, pay attention to your Reinhardt and make sure that you're with him. Your tanks are going, and your front line are going to be the things that need attention the most of the time, because they're going to be taking the most damage. So we want to make sure that we're paying attention to him. On top of that, just stay with him, right, and make sure we're with him. This is very obviously a situation where he is in danger, right, because he is, even if he's not low HP here, right, there's a difference between low HP and in danger, right? Somebody could be, come on, that annoying sound. Somebody could be over here, right, and critical HP, but this person is not in danger, right? Therefore, we wouldn't need to throw a healing orb to keep them alive, right? Because they're not in danger of dying, because we could just regular heal them up. But if Reinhardt's up here and he's full HP, he is still in danger because he's charging into the middle of 6 people by himself, which means that he's going to be taking a ton of damage, right? So he's in danger of dying here. Therefore, even if he's not low, we want to be preemptively with him, so that if we're right here, right, and he gets pinned and is on the ground, we can be already healing him and possibly keep him alive here, right? Because we're with him, we're healing him, we're keeping him alive while he's in danger. But we kind of sit back here, we're not paying attention to the fact that he's low, and then he just ends up dying while we're outside of his range, right? So we just want to pay attention to our tanks and make sure we're sticking with them and healing them. Okay, Rissa does not need healing, make sure we're damaging, right? Pay attention to those health bars. Whenever you're throwing a healing orb, look to bounce it off a wall, because you're trying to get to stick with yourself, right? You don't need to do the damage with this with the damage orb, but if you're throwing a healing orb, right, for example, we can throw it to the left, and then now the orb just goes like this, right, and it bounces back and forth, right? And even if you don't have a second wall to bounce it off, like let's say, for example, here, right, we can throw it off of this wall, and therefore just sticks with us just that little bit longer, right? You use 2 walls if you can, but if you can't get 2 walls, you just use 1 wall. Here we just kind of throw it forwards, and then the rest of the orb just goes off into nothingness and gets wasted, which sometimes can just be a little bit more of it. It's just another consistency thing. It's gonna get you a little bit more healing, get you a little bit more out of your orbs. Okay, now we are going to go over positioning. Now this is something that I thought, and then we'll go after this. We'll go into the kind of wrap up review main points section. But this is one that I thought maybe would come a little bit faster, but it didn't end up. Mainly because I think that usually in low ranks, even if you have bad positioning, it doesn't get punished often. So just because mistakes aren't punished doesn't mean that they're not mistakes. But it also just means that when it doesn't get punished, it's harder to notice and spot and point out to you. But basically, if we are standing right here, right, and there's a whole enemy team, and they're all looking at us, shooting at us, it takes us 1, 2, 3 seconds to get behind cover, right? Now you can't shoot through walls, therefore from here we are safe. We can no longer be shot at. But in the time it took us to get here, we died because that was out in the open. Now from here, in half of a second, we can go like this, boom, and get behind cover, and now they can't see us, right? As opposed to 3 whole seconds, right? Which means that we are very safe here. Therefore, good positioning is the usage of cover, right? And bad positioning is the absence of cover where there is none, right? So basically, there's a ton of different types of cover, right? We can use something like this. The further away we stray, that makes it worse and worse and worse. We can also use like a slope like so. We can use pillars, right? And when we're low HP, when we're trying to dodge ultimates or dodge damage, we use corners, right? Use a fine line around, right? You can use the like this, right? Pillar, corner, doorway, corner. All of high ground acts as really good positioning as natural cover. Those more you're not gonna, because like we said, you're not a long range character. You're only gonna want to take high ground if your team's up there. But all of high ground acts as natural cover because they can see us, now they can't see us. Right? He sees us, now he can't see us. We can add in a crowd, same thing. On top of that, half the characters in the game can't get to up here, and then the other half that can need to use abilities. And then, yep, that's pretty much it. Just demonstrating the thing I was showing before. This is how long it takes to kill somebody. Just beaming them out in regular. Now this is how long it takes to kill somebody when you throw a damage orb with it, right?
Touch from afar.
Right. A lot faster, right? Almost twice as fast. You're going to be killing someone a lot faster if you're doing that, especially if you're trying to kill something that's 200 health and doesn't have shields, not someone who has 400, 500 health and does have shields, right? So kind of now we're gonna go to the wrap up, review, main points type of section here. Ability usage, not the worst thing, but also needs a lot of work with it. Fade, look to be a little bit more in control of it. Use it a little bit more frequently, right? You use it in 2 different situations when you're using it for mobility. So while you're walking back from spawn, you're just going to use it to get back faster. When you're looking to get to somewhere fast, you look to use it. But a lot more often, it's probably going to be used for dodging out abilities or dodging out ultimates, or when you're in danger, right? You just use fade to get around the corner. Look to be a little bit more in control over your fade and not just going all the way back up. Look to stay in with your team and not like every time you're fading you don't want to go back up a mile. All right. Now on top of that, ability orb usage, right? You're looking, same thing as everything else, you're looking to throw damage orbs whenever healing orbs are not necessary. That's going to be a lot of the times that like just in between fights, right? But then also you throw a healing orb whenever somebody is low, whenever you're out of resource, right? You have nothing and you need to use it for healing. You throw an orb if someone's too far away for you to heal. Like if somebody's needing healing over there and we're too far away, we can throw an orb to get to them faster, right? We can throw an orb if we already have our ult, because if you have our ult, then we don't need the damage orb for ult charge anymore, right? We can still throw a damage orb where we're trying to burst down somebody and kill them, but we don't need it just for spam damage if we already have our ultimate, right? And then that is pretty. Oh, and then on top of that, with our orbs, just make sure we're looking to focus it really and making sure it's not just bouncing off of random stuff, but it's going to where we want it to go. So pretty much just look straight at the person you're trying to get it to. For an enemy, throw it in the direction that they're moving. But with teammates, look to make sure you're bouncing it off of something. Like so we can do this and just have it bounce back and forth, and that way it stays with them for the entire duration. All right. Now, Moving on, Coalescence, probably the best thing that we have, though it still does need a little bit of work, right? Make sure that you're looking to position yourself to hit as many people as possible, right? So we're just putting ourselves in between us and the teammates and enemies, right? Same thing as before. Anytime a teammate is not in need of healing, we're looking to damage with it, and we're trying to line up as many people as we can, right? Look, priority targets again. Look to focus the easy things to kill with it. Besides that, timing of it, make sure you're looking to use it at the very beginning of fights, that you're not holding on to it, but we did really good with the timing usually. And then on top of that, make sure that you're not looking to use it in fights that we won or fights that we lost, right? So that one did need just a little bit of paying attention to. Just make sure you're paying attention to kill feed. Because there were 2 different fights in particular where we used it when we had already, in one of them we had lost the fight, and one of them we had won the fight, right? So we just want to pay attention to that when it comes to ults. Now, moving on to mechanics, kind of a lot of, honestly, like just your right click and left click, shooting at stuff didn't really have too much of a problem, but there's a lot of things that kind of fit into the category shooting at things to talk about. So, for example, we can talk about target priority, which is a big one. Making sure that we are looking to shoot at the right things, not the wrong things. So most often, you're going to want to shoot at DPS and supports, as they're going to be a lot easier to kill than tanks are. So unless, if you're like in desperate need of resource because you have nothing, then it doesn't matter who you're shooting at. Look to shoot a tank because they might actually be the easiest things to get. But if you're looking to damage specifically to kill something, right, or to do damage, then you want to kill the things that you're going to kill the easiest, right? Now,
I got a question for that. So usually the support and DPS, they have a front line in front of them.
Yep.
Is it okay to just ignore them and go on to kill them, or to make damage to them?
Basically, I think I forgot to add in this part, but it's not that you never shoot at tanks, right? It's that you prioritize the others. So then you shoot at tanks if they're out of position, if they're low, if they're the only thing to shoot at. But if you have equal opportunities, so meaning a support is standing here, a tank is standing there, right? You can shoot at both of them. Most of the time, like in the game that we were watching, we'd have that opportunity where the support would be like just standing right next to the tank, and we'd shoot at the tank anyways, right? So when we have equal opportunity to shoot at either one of them, we want to be shooting at the support or the DPS. Right? Now on Moira, you're not going to be actively if you're on a DPS character, I'd probably say like you want to go actively seek out the supports and DPS. But on Moira, it's more like you kill them if it's an option, right? If it's not an option, then you shoot at the tanks. But you also maybe want to put yourselves in positions where you're looking for them, or just actively seek them out a tiny little bit. Not so much that you're putting yourself away from your team, right? But if you can, for example, like if your team's like right here, you can heal them and peek over here and shoot at a DPS and support, and then be back and heal them. Then that's fine, right? This is called an off angle. You take a slightly different angle than where your team's at, and that way you can get to the supports and DPS. Right? Does that all make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
All right. So now on top of that, another thing that kind of fits in that a little bit is into that category little bit is going to be actions per minute, and making sure we're being aggressive and not super passive. We're at kind of like a 30 right now. Look to dial it up to like a 50 so that you're a little bit more aggressive, as at the moment we're playing a little bit too passive. Make sure you're constantly trying to do something. So anytime healing's not necessary, we're looking to damage, right? But there's a lot of times where we just kind of mismanage both of those. So that's just I guess we'll kind of fit that in as well, because that doesn't really have a place to put, like a category to put it in. So we'll just put it there. Mechanics is just anytime healing isn't necessary in anything that in your kit, we're damaging, right? Which a lot of times you kind of mismanage that, and we'll be damaging when somebody needs healing, or we'll be healing when nobody needs healing, right? So we just want to pay attention to health bars based off of that. Moving on from there, make sure, so we're, I guess, going to positioning, make sure you're within 15 meters of teammates, but preferably a lot closer. We probably should be as within range and as close to as many teammates as we can be. But then also we all want to make sure we're 20 meters away from enemy players, preferably, so that we can look at damage whenever we can. Besides that, make sure you're not out in the open, and that we're respecting cover usage, right? We're not standing too far out in the open. And then from there, I think that is, I don't think we talked about anything else with positioning. I think that was pretty much it.
Yep.
And then last thing is going to be our awareness. Make sure that with your awareness that you're set, ton of different parts of awareness. HUD watching, not too much of a problem, good on there. But three things that we do need to pay attention to are what's happening in game around us, right? Where's the enemy team at? Where's our team at? And that means we're not just walking around doing a slow pan, but we're looking left, we're looking right, we're doing a 360 once in a while, right? We're paying attention to our surroundings and make sure we're focusing on that so that we can make better decisions. So pay attention to where enemy team and our teammates are at, and then pay attention to health bars as well, so that we can prioritize whether or not we're healing or damaging and whatnot, and make better decisions. And then thirdly is paying attention to kill feeds so that we can know whether or not we're winning or losing. Just to reiterate, 1 to 2 kills is a advantage or a disadvantage. 2 to 3 is a won or a lost. And then you don't use ults in lost fights, and you want to either push forward to stagger them or back out so that you don't stagger. Now, that is pretty much it. So main points, right? Like what do you want to work on first? Probably say awareness. Yeah, was #1 thing. Needs to be worked on first so you can make better decisions. Number 2 is probably going to be at our mechanics and making sure that we are shooting at the right things, doing things more often. And those are the 2 main ones, right? Off of that, I think number 3 we're going to put at probably our ability usage. Number 4 we're going to put at our positioning, and then number 5 we have our ultimate. I think ability usage and positioning could be interchangeable. It's all of them need work. It's just kind of like which ones you want to work on first. I'd probably definitely say awareness though is the one that we want to work on most of all and start to work on right away. Right. Any questions on anything we've gone over?
No, that was pretty clear and concise.
All right. Well then, I just ended